All right, good evening everyone and welcome to tonight's council meeting. Council would like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of the lands, waterways and the incredible skies that we meet tonight. We pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who make up the Greater Geelong community today. Now this meeting is being broadcast on the internet and the recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Good evening everybody, my name is Trent Sullivan and as the Mayor of Greater Geelong I will be chairing the August Council meeting tonight. Thank you all for attending. Thank you to the community members who have joined us in person here at City Hall and to those who are tuning in via the live stream online. Now since our last meeting, Council has farewelled one of our Bellarine Ward councillors and former Mayor Stephanie Asher. The Council and the wider community have been well served by the leadership and drive of Stephanie, and I, and many of us here around the table, were fortunate to join Council in 2017 at the same time as Steph. It's been an honour to serve as her Deputy Mayor under her leadership, and her advice has helped many of us around this table greatly, and she leaves a fantastic legacy. We all wish her well in the next phase of her career, and thank her for her valuable contributions to the wider Geelong region. Now the VEC will be running a countback on the results of the 2020 general election for the Bellarine Ward next Monday. That's Monday the 28th. And we'll see a new councillor elected to represent the ward. And we certainly look forward to welcoming them to the team around the table tonight. And that will bring us back to the full complement of 11. And we also have another commencement on the 28th. That will be the commencement of our new CEO, Ali Wasty. So therefore this will be the last council meeting for our acting CEO, Karina Fireland, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge all of the work, time and dedication that has been undertaken by Karina during the past year, as it quite has nearly been to the year on one calendar day just about, since Karina did take the reins as interim CEO. Now the duty of an extended acting CEO is not definitely an easy one by nature, even more so when we didn't expect it to be quite so long. That greatly changes the nature of the challenges, but Karina certainly rose to the occasion on every occasion. And on behalf of Council, I'd like to thank Karina Fireland for her devotion to the role during what has been an extremely complex time, both politically and economically. Your service to the community is certainly greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time. So therefore we have two new members joining us, the new CEO and new Council Law. Our next community meeting, which will be held in Drysdale on the 26th of September. But we're certainly going to get along tonight. We've got a few reports to note and I'm sure many questions as well. My councillors, I'll be asking for strict adherence to the speaking time limits tonight. Known to apologies and leaves of absence, this evening we have a leave of absence for Councillor Mason, who's on leave. We also have some requests as well that definitely need noting. We've got a couple of backtracks to do, and one of them, the first one, is leave of absence to be granted for Councillor Harwood for the 10th of July to 31st of July 2023 inclusive. Can we have a mover and a seconder for that one? Moved Councillor Aiken, Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Maloney. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? It's carried. So it was actually done by the Chamber? That's what I thought. Yeah, okay. I thought we were just going to respect you because they did go through. You've been and done. Well, then it's followed through as well. All right. Retrospective leave of absence for Councillor Cadwell from the 1st of August to the 14th of August 2023 inclusive. Can we have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Hathaway, seconded Councillor Maloney. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Third one. Leave of absence granted to Councillor Nelson from the 17th of August to the 25th of August 2023 inclusive. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Harwood, seconded Deputy Mayor Aiken. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. And that finally, leave of absence be granted to Councillor Contell from the 3rd of November to the 9th of November 2023 inclusive, and the 21st of February to 12th of March 2024 inclusive.
That's the 3rd of November till the 9th of December.
December, yes, correct, sir. Please have that moved. Councillor Murray, seconded Councillor Harwood. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. All right. Therefore, Councillor Nelson is covering on leave of absence, as Councillor Mason will go further. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations or conflicts of interest to be noted in relation to tonight's agenda, councillors?
Mr. Mayor, if there is a community member that will be talking to question 9 of the questions, being Chrissy Freestone, I will be declaring a conflict on that question.
Okay.
On account that I have family members that, not family members, that the landowners / developers are customers of the business of which I'm a director.
That's Gontel. That is noted. Right, moving on to confirmation of minutes. May I please have a move and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 25th of July 2023. Move Councillor Harwood, second Councillor Gontel. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Right, the next agenda item is public question and submission time. It is specifically available for questions and submissions rather than as a forum for discussion. And in accordance with our policy, 45 minutes is set aside for question time, providing for each person to address the council for 3 minutes per question or submission, with no more than 2 questions asked or submissions made per person. Now, questions and submissions provided in writing prior to the meeting will be considered first. After this time, if time permits, members of the gallery will certainly be invited up and given the opportunity to ask a question or make a submission. However, in total, if it is in relation to an agenda item that's coming up before us tonight, councillors won't be able to provide you with an answer, as you'll be hearing us debate that very item shortly. For those who have pre-submitted questions but are not present tonight, responses to your questions have been published on council's website and will also be emailed to you directly. It's also important to note that each councillor has read and considered the questions sent in. Now, for tonight's meeting, we have received pre-submitted questions from 14 community members, and I'm just going to go through and read out the names and items or subjects of them now, so they're on the public record. Then I'll be inviting individuals up to make their question or submission. Vicky Sheridan for payment plans, swim, sport and leisure. Charles Street, energy from waste facility at Lara. Thaddeus Trelaw, sustainable infrastructure design. Kelly Clitheroe for Astronomical Society of Geelong dark sky policy. Sarah Brown, social and affordable housing. Tegan Mitchell, voice to parliament. Felicity Dales, G21 subscription. Jean Nau de Coca for tree protection and flood management. Chrissy Freestone, Northern and Western Geelong growth areas. Celia Vanderstadt for Geelong for Yes Group, request for council support. Katerina Larissa Izdebskia, Frog Hollow Morven Court. Caroline Gallert, Smart City Expo attendance. Louis de Coca, Frog Hollow Morven Court. And Vicky Parrott, energy from waste facility at Lara. May I please have a show of hands of whose names I've read out this evening? Excellent. All right, I'm now going to go through the list and invite persons down as they appeared in that order. So is Vicky Sheridan here this evening? Lovely, please, welcome to the front, Vicky. I'll just invite you to the front here, Vicky. How are you, Vicky?
Well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
I'm here to speak about...
We'll just make sure the microphone's working. It just seems like it's turning itself on a little bit. There you go. Now, Vicky, I'll just get you to state your full name, and then your time is yours.
All
please.
right. My name's Vicky Sheridan, and I'm here to speak on the reasoning and why the council, I presume, decided to give members of the Sports and Recreation Network no payment options. Once upon a time you could do a yearly option, and then I have always done that. Now you can only do every 2 weeks direct debit, and that's caused a lot of angst with people that use the pools or the gyms or whatever, because it really has taken away people's right to make their own decisions about how they manage their personal finance. because you no longer are able to choose. And I don't know that it really should be the council's role to lessen people's choices in life, especially about finances. In this journey to find out why, I've spoken to lots of people who have been very patient at the council, and they've all said, oh, well, everybody's happy with it. And the thing that probably is most distressing to a lot of people is that there was no lead up to it. COVID spoiled a lot of things, changed a lot of things, and people let their membership go, and it took a little while for them to get the courage to come back. When they came back, they no longer had a choice. And that seems to be the way. And I object to that, as do a lot of people. Unfortunately, most of the people that have spoken to me about this don't have the courage to follow it through. I've spent a lot of time with this. So I guess I'm here representing those, as well as not having the right to choose how you pay your bills and how your personal finances is run. It's this fear of, if you have money taken out every 2 weeks, you're more susceptible to scamming, and it's all this scamming and internet and all of that sort of thing. And I just find it hard to believe. Apparently, the old system that you could do both, you've got a new computer system, is my understanding, program, I don't know what it's really called, that if you get things taken out every 2 weeks, you're more open to it. I've spent a long time limiting my digital footprint, as have a lot of the people I speak to. And I know I'm only talking about a small section of the Geelong community, but they are an older section of it, and I'm part of that, and quite happily part of that. And a lot of them don't have people that can help them with the internet, so they have this fear. They don't have the knowledge, the confidence to complain about it, and so they don't come. And I find that really sad, because for whatever reason you made the decision, it's excluded a lot of people from the lacking choice, and because they don't feel confident using the internet to do that. Now, rightly or wrongly, that's how people feel. And they're the people who are getting older that used to go to the leisure centres, and they're a wonderful service. And people, I have to say, I congratulate the staff you have at the places, because in all of this, and when I go there, they are always polite and well-mannered. But I think there's a silent majority whose lives are getting smaller because they have chosen not to rejoin, not to do it, and it's to their detriment. And I just wonder why the council would ever choose to have a payment plan initially that there is no choice, when I'm sure there's some IT gurus that would be able to do that. Acknowledge that that's a lump sum, not a that. So I'm just wondering why the council would ever make that decision.
Thank you, Vicky. We appreciate it. It does raise a couple of concerns there. I think we'll just go to our Acting Director of Community Service Delivery for clarification on this.
Who are we looking at? Oh.
Alistair Miller. Might need turning on at the base of it. Just give it 2 seconds. I see the blue light working. Give another tap, Alistair. There we go. Perfect.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Vicky, for your question. Lump sum or one-off annual payments for memberships are still available for existing members, or for new members via request, or for those who are funded via third-party agencies such as insurers, support agencies. Since January 2022, we've been working hard to simplify entry products at our centres from over 200 membership types to around 50. This is to reduce the large and confusing variation of products that have been offered, and to move our business towards digital platforms to make things quicker, easier and reliable for customers. We promote and incentivize direct debit membership types, as customers with these membership types will very soon be able to purchase and manage all direct debit memberships, suspensions, changes and cancellations online, and they can choose whether or not to use the support of centre staff to support with this. We want to provide flexible membership options that don't lock members into minimum or maximum contracts. And the automated ability to direct debit membership models means staff can spend more time doing what they do best, helping our members achieve positive health and wellbeing outcomes. One-off annual memberships are available.
I believe they still have an option, Vicky, now, though. We need to clarify that absolutely.
You don't have to already have it, because it
Yeah.
doesn't apply to me. I've always paid up front, and because I have
No.
the response
Understand,
I've got
Vicky?
from everybody.
So a response from everybody's in customer service areas, or?
Yeah, I have. I've spoken, somebody from the council rang me. I've spoken to probably 10, 15 people, and nobody, the response I have had from everybody is, unless you are already paying up front, because that's what you signed up to when you first joined. So I've never let mine lapse, but those that did,
Okay, so that comes into the new
and they have
membership
been
policy.
told, no,
Yeah.
you can't.
I understand.
And that's why I'm here tonight.
We can work on that. I
because-
greatly appreciate that. I think Deputy Mayor has something he wants to add to the conversation.
So-
Ali, you're right.
My understanding is new memberships is by request. So if
Well,
you requested.
We have had people ask that, and they've said, no, you can only do it.
I think we'll follow this
We'll
one up for you,
clarify.
Vicky, and we'll make
So
contact.
I won't waste your
Appreciate
time,
it.
we're all busy. But if you could, all right.
Clarify
We'll make
that and get
contact.
back to you.
All right, so you're in charge of,
Customer service delivery.
Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor,
Right.
sorry.
thank you
Mr.
for your
Mayor,
time.
Vicky, before you leave, I think you've answered the question I was going to ask you. So did you actually try to pay, or you were based on
Well,
evidence
yes,
that other
I
people
did.
gave
When
you?
I tried to put my membership on suspension when I went away, and they said, you can't, you have to give us at least 2 weeks' notice, because everybody pays by fortnightly direct debit. And I said, well, I don't. And they said, oh, everybody does. But anyway, I found somebody who said they don't. And then I was told, yeah, people have tried to pay up front that used to, and they've been told, no, you can't.
That is a different question. That is a different question. You're actually being told you have to pay by direct debit,
Yes.
which is a different question. So
Oh.
if that's actually what, it sounds like that option isn't available. So I think we need to get clarification
It needs to be
from
quite
our
clear.
sport and leisure
Yeah.
section, because if it, what you're actually saying is you don't wish to pay by direct debit, you actually wish to
Pay a lump
pay
sum.
up front and
Yeah.
just pay it at the time
I
you
know,
sign
yeah.
up, or what, 2
Yeah.
weeks later. That's a different question. The response that's been given by the officers is that, yes, you can pay up annually, but you have to still pay by direct debit. So I think we need to get clarification of
I'm
what's being
confused.
Well, it did say,
administered,
the answer was
because,
they'd say lump
Vicky,
sums
it is
are available.
confusing for you, and
It
I
is.
understand what you're actually asking, and unfortunately the
Right.
response we got wasn't actually what you were asking.
It did
for.
cover
No.
most of it, Deputy Mayor. I'll just go to Councillor Maloney for a quick comment or
Yeah.
question.
I'm confused. Or not.
Wait a second, it's flashing. There you are.
Now you're running. If
Okay.
There we
Now
go.
you're right. Now you're off. and
Sorry
running.
about that. I've Muay Thai syndrome. Thanks for that, raising that, Vicky. I've had a similar constituent request via the portal, and I just wanted to follow up on that. Someone who visited, I think it was the arena and one of the other sports facilities, who mentioned that they couldn't pay with cash, or that it was told that they were not able to pay with cash. And I've also heard a couple of other people mention that to me. Perhaps there's an issue with communication, but I'll log another portal request on that, because it's perfectly okay to pay via cash as well, rather than direct debit. And I think that there's a lot of pincer movements to try and prevent people from using cash, paying with cash. And that's just across the board at every institution. It's not a council-specific thing. And I'm pretty sure I know what's behind it, but I just thought I'd mention that that's something that I've looked into with respect to consistency, so I might get some clarification on that as well. But with respect to what you mentioned, Alistair mentioned about the visibility, if it's available upon request, was that visible to you in a sign when you approached the counter? Or is it something that was quite, available on request? Because it sounds like it was a bit of a mystery there.
That phrase has come up on request in all my journey in all of this. They say it's on request, but people aren't told that if you request it, you can have it.
Okay, it sounds like a visibility issue perhaps as well.
Yeah,
We might need to
and
clarify.
it-
Thank you.
Yeah, that's, so I won't hold.
Thanks
hold
for bringing this to
so
our
much.
attention,
Thank you,
Vicky.
But I'm here, yeah. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you. All right, Charles Street. Hi, Charles.
Good. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. Yes, I have two questions relating to the proposal to construct and operate a waste-to-energy facility in Lara. So my first question, from our previous questions to council, we understand that the City of Greater Geelong is a referral authority for planning application PA 2001-035, which proposes that Prospect Hill International construct and operate an energy from waste facility at Lara. We agree that it is appropriate for the council to be a referral authority. Thus, and I'm quoting, the city is obliged to provide independent advice and feedback regarding the application's consistency with the planning scheme. Would council please provide a list of all the clauses in the planning scheme which are relevant to assessing this application's consistency with the planning scheme, please?
Question, Charles. I'll go to our Director of Planning and Design, Gareth Smith.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Charles, for coming and extending on the questions on this important topic. So Council considers that the relevant clauses in the planning scheme that trigger the requirements for a planning permit are clauses 33.02, the Industrial 2 Zone, which refers to waste to energy facilities as Section 2 land use, under clause 32.02-1, table of uses as such a planning permit is required for the use of a waste to energy facility within the Industrial 2 Zone. Right. Under clause 43.02, so the design and development overlay, Schedule 18, which applies to this land as well. And clause 43.02-2, buildings and works, identifies that a planning permit is required to construct a building or construct or carry out works. And clause 52.06, car parking. So in accordance with this clause, before a new use commences, car parking spaces must be provided to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. We note under the applicable planning provisions, only the requirements of clause 43.02-2, and I know you've got this in writing, so are not exempt from public notice and review rights such as VCAT. So they're the relevant parts that we're assessing it against. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful, and I assume I'm going to get that in writing.
100%.
Absolutely, we don't expect you to remember that one. Let's go from there, Charles.
I struggle to remember, Charles, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Definitely
No,
didn't.
thank you very much. That's very helpful.
No,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
My second question?
Yep, please.
Thank you. Via the Environment Protection Authority, we have a copy of the City of Greater Geelong's referral report dated 28 April 2001 relating to that same planning application. Much has changed since that referral report was produced. The EPA initiated a second and third period of public submissions in light of new information, and a public meeting after the referral report was written. We also have an update to the rules for an environment effect statement and a new waste to energy framework. More significantly, there is new scientific evidence regarding waste incineration and public health. For example, Tate et al. 2020, The Health Impacts of Waste Incineration, a Systematic Review. In the light of these developments, will Council now direct the City Engineering Department to produce a new or updated referral report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Charles. I'll answer that one for you. So the City and the Council here certainly acknowledges your comments regarding the more recent research findings and the multiple rounds since of community engagement that the process is undertaken by the EPA. However, the EPA have not sought further referral from the council as part of this process, so they haven't asked for an update of our submission or presented to be open for an updated submission from us. Therefore, we're not in a position to provide further responses at the time. However, the City does encourage you to continue to direct your concerns to the EPA as the determining authority, because who knows, maybe they then will become open to another submission from the council, but the current status quo is that they're not.
Sorry, they're not closed?
They haven't engaged us for an updated submission from the council.
All right.
It's
Okay.
the
Thank you.
crux of the matter. Thank you, Charles. Thaddeus Treloar. Hi, Thaddeus.
Good, and yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well,
Excellent.
you just see your name in full for me, and then your time will be yours.
I'm Thaddeus Treloar, and I was speaking on the sustainable infrastructure planning question. I might just revise the order and actually start with the context and then ask the questions separately. So I just wanted to highlight, with regards to these questions, a proposed intersection at Barnett Boulevard and Boundary Road, Mount Dunedin, as an example. With a brief estimation from existing projects and some research from the Victorian Government, assessed that the project would service approximately 400 properties and likely cost 38% of the 30-year rates income for those 400 properties. While this project has been marked as necessary to reduce local traffic and the state will partially fund it, the current model is unsustainable and will only result in a ballooning, untenable maintenance burden for future residents. We cannot continue to try and solve car traffic congestion with more expensive car infrastructure. I've included links to several case studies that prove time and again that car infrastructure is not sustainable and that continuing such practices will send the council bankrupt in the process. Instead, we should focus on redirecting to proven sustainable design patterns and encouraging residents to engage in new commuting or travel alternatives. And actually just sitting here, I remembered that this subject matter was actually referred to by the G21 Alliance as 21 to 41 Integrated Infrastructure Plan. So the first question, what is the council doing to ensure infrastructure projects remain fiscally sustainable?
Indeed, thank you, Thaddeus, and we're always looking to get into more sustainable design patterns and engage alternate travels or methods of travel. But for an answer for this one, I'll go to City Infrastructure Director, David Greaves.
Mr Mayor, and thank you, Thaddeus. To mitigate the financial risks associated with the delivery of infrastructure in growth areas, key infrastructure projects are identified through the precinct structure plans and are then funded through the development contribution plans, where financial contributions come from the land developers in the area to pay for shared infrastructure. The intersection at Banyan Boulevard and Boundary Road, Mount Dunedin, which will link Banyan Boulevard with the realigned Boundary Road, is one of these development contribution funded projects. The project provides arterial road access for vehicles and connectivity for cyclists and pedestrians to the shared trails network. The need for this intersection is outlined within the Armstrongs Creek West Precinct Structure Plan. During the planning process, sustainable transport objectives and all modes of travel are considered in the transport network design. The city's clever and creative vision sets out ambitious targets for sustainable transport, and the recent G21 transport strategy further highlights the need for investment in sustainable development. The city recognises that even with improvements to the public transport and active transport networks, there will still be a need for the provision of vehicle access as part of the new developments. Thank you.
On that, I will actually mention that kind of further highlights
That is to me, please. Sorry, all questions.
directed to you.
Yeah, directed to me.
Just on that, the fact that it's funded by the developer actually increases the likelihood of the tax burden because you're more likely to build infrastructure. It's one of the major problems facing a lot of American cities at the moment, which I've got a lot of nodding heads, so it sounds like everybody's well aware. And so the problem isn't now, it's in 30 years from now. There's actually one of the research papers that I have linked there in describing that there will be further need for infrastructure, which is, it does happen. We're currently not all the way to that kind of model. Continuing to build the roads only increases the demand. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And also with those precinct planning, the planning was done 6 years prior, so it was 12 years ago. 6 years after that, or 6 years prior to now, there were some guidelines released by the state government which none of the local infrastructure there that's been built over the last 5 years actually meets. I was told that it did, but I mean, I can point to sections of that don't. So that's obviously a major concern if we're currently building infrastructure that's outside of the current state government guidelines.
And I appreciate concerns and your comments on that.
Which I believe I have
Give us something to follow up to. Absolutely. Cool. Councillor Murray. Sorry, Mike, mate.
It's a great question, and I just on the agenda tonight is a report from Councillor Maloney, and she did a transport innovation study towards the. So I encourage you to read Councillor Maloney's report that's on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
It's quite comprehensive, and there's some great ideas in that.
Yeah, beautiful. And then I'll just, it sounds like it's partially answered, but for completion, I'll just ask the second half of the question. Has the council acknowledged that car-dependent sprawling design is not a sustainable practice?
Acknowledge what, sorry?
Has the council acknowledged that car-dependent sprawling design is not a sustainable practice?
The council definitely endeavours to be moving away from car-reliant transport and to be encouraging other methods of alternative transport and active transport. Absolutely. It's something we're incorporating in all of our design patterns going forward.
Okay, and so is that basically a case of we're waiting for our old plans to die out before we can start making new plans, or?
No, we're often talking about transport in this chamber and parking, and have it all ties together into a large picture, so it's definitely front of mind. Thank you, Thaddeus.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. All right, Kelly Clitheroe. Clitheroe. Hi, Kelly.
I'm well, thank you.
Excellent.
How are you all?
Yeah, we're all doing very well, thank you.
Good.
If I can just ask you for your full name and your time will be yours.
Sure. My name is Kelly Clitheroe. I'm the Secretary of the Astronomical Society of Geelong, and I appreciate the fact that when you did your acknowledgement of country, one of the things that you mentioned was skies, because I guess that's what we're interested in as the Astronomical Society, more and more it's becoming important that we have a dark sky policy. Now, the proposal that I've put into council at no point says, please, no lights at all. What we're saying is, can we please consider alternative lighting? Can we consider shielded lighting? And can we consider the types of lights that we're actually putting up? So our concerns are around the massive growth and development in the Geelong region, the unrestricted use of lights on commercial buildings, the City of Greater Geelong buildings, including the library, swimming pools, storage facilities, office buildings, etc., and the wasted resources associated with leaving lights on around the clock. And we have a brand new library in Drysdale, and thank you very much, it's a lovely library. However, at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, throughout the week, this place is lit up like a Christmas tree. Your waste, where you store your trucks, is also lit up like Christmas trees. You've got lovely trucks that have got City of Greater Geelong going greener, and then you've got all this light pollution going into the air. Now, when you discussed Welcome to Country, one of the communities that are being affected by light pollution, of course, are the Indigenous cultures. So they've been looking at the skies for thousands of years, and unfortunately, the skies are no longer accessible to them. They use them for navigation, they use them for knowing when to find food, and those sorts of things are no longer becoming available. So we would also like to see curfews on outdoor lighting, appropriate shielding of streets, side of buildings, movement toward warm lighting rather than harsh blue-white lighting, and encouragement for residents to install motion sensor lighting rather than operator switch lighting, which can be left on all night. Now, one of the things I recently had done, I have had significant light trespass onto my own property. The lovely Brad from the council came down, had a look, and he fitted shields to the lights. The lights are looking fantastic, and those lights are no longer invading my property. So, if you guys know that you can fit all these lights with shields, why aren't they automatically fitted? So my question is, can the City of Greater Geelong please consider implementing a dark sky policy consistent with the proposal put forward by the Astronomical Society of Geelong by educating the public rewarding homeowners and businesses doing the right thing with regard to outdoor lighting, and offering subsidies for sensor lights, low wattage and longer wavelength LEDs, or banning the sale of blue-white LEDs, requiring businesses to turn off, remove or shield inappropriate lighting, particularly that which causes night blindness due to glare.
Thank you for your question, Kelly. A lot of information that you've been passed to us as well, and I know you've sent through some documents earlier as well to staff as well, which are coming towards us. We certainly appreciate you sharing the proposal and acknowledgement, the value that your society has. A lot of great work has been done in these areas with, we have over 25,000 streetlights in the city of Greater Geelong.
I know.
And you're right, we're all very aware of light and visual pollution in many aspects, but this implementation of a dark sky policy, where we said certainly has many points of that we may be considering already under different areas, but a more cohesive approach may be a way forwards. But this will certainly be something that we'd have to discuss as a council first before going forwards and committing to policy such as that. But we do appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I think there'll be some councillors around here who are quite interested in this.
Be happy to discuss it with anyone, and I'm more than happy to meet with people. We have the Aries Inlet are applying for dark sky status, so the Astronomical Society will be presenting there. Snake Valley already has it, so if people are interested, I'm more than happy to have a conversation around that. Thank you very much.
Right, is Sarah Brown here with us this evening? Hi, Sarah. Good, excellent. I'll just get you to state your full name for us, please, and then your time is absolutely all yours.
I'm Sarah Brown, and I have got 2 questions. Real Deal for Geelong is an alliance of community organisations, faith groups, unions and invested community members working to put people and neighbourhoods at the centre of policy for the common good. From an extensive community consultation process, we established 3 priorities areas of concern to Geelong residents: secure housing, meaningful work and affordable living, and care and connection for all. Our questions today relate most directly to housing. The Social and Affordable Housing Plan 2020 to 2041 was endorsed by Council in February 2020. One key element of this plan, noted as investment strategy number 2, was to allocate an annual budget contribution of $1 million to City of Greater Geelong social housing growth strategy. Can you confirm that the business case for this allocation has been completed and that this allocation has indeed been made in 2020, 2021 and 2022, and detail which housing units or renovations have resulted from its expenditure?
Good question. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for being here representing Real Deal for Geelong. So, you are very familiar with the business case here. However, the business case for this funding is dependent on other strategic actions coming out of the strategy, such as the establishment of the trust and other funding opportunities. So the Trust for Social Housing, which Geelong was actually one of the forefronts of looking to develop and is in the process of doing so. So we can't actually allocate any budget funding amounts until that trust is fully up and running and ready to be implemented, which is the current stage we're in right now of the process.
Given the need for social housing in Geelong, where is the council at in the selection of their community housing partner for the 3 sites selected for social housing in Geelong at 116 to 120 Purnell Road, Corio, 5A Dean Street, Belmont, and 2/14 Rowlands Road, Bellpost Hill? And how can community organisations positively engage with the partner to support the development of this land for high quality, innovative social housing?
Indeed. So the partner for this will be the trustee of the trust. At the end result, that'll be their official title and involvement with the trust to help administer it. So discussions are still continuing regarding the selection of who the trustee will be, and the final decision regarding the selection of that partner is still yet to come to council. But as I said, that's, as I referred to in question 1, that's the stage we're currently up in defining the trust and the trustee before we can move forward on to the next steps. I think there's some comments. If I may just wait there for a minute, Sarah. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Sarah, look, thank you for your question and drawing attention to this issue. It's probably the most significant issue confronting Australia at the present time. That's certainly why the federal government made the announcement last week, jointly with state governments, that housing affordability and social housing stock is actually one of the most important policy areas and areas that's needed funding. Specifically to your question, 2 of the 3 sites have actually received significant community opposition to them, and council's actually working through a process of how to deal with that community opposition. One site location, which happens to be in the northern suburbs, hasn't received community opposition to it. Councillor Hathaway and myself have started discussions about how we can elevate attention back to social housing. Sarah has just recently, at our last council meeting, been appointed Chair of Access and Inclusion, which includes social housing and affordable housing. And we certainly do wish to reprioritise council's resources and focus. It is sad that those 2 site locations have received significant community opposition, but the reality is we are a government for all, and we have to work through those issues before they can be resolved and put forward. But the willingness of this council towards trying to create affordable and social housing is significant compared to other local government authorities around Victoria, and also the action that we have participated in to actually commit to actually find site locations which should go into a trust. The council's never done that before. To actually commit to establish a trust that is focused on Geelong has never happened before as well too. And but I do acknowledge that probably the speed at which it's occurring is not as quick as what the community's desire and need is, and that is something that we're conscious of. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Thanks, Sarah. Ian Mitchell here this evening. Are you there?
Good, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm acting as proxy for Tegan. She couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately.
All right, so we'll just get your full name and you'll be right to ask the question.
Paul Manders.
Paul.
Not bad at all.
No worries. All right, you said your name, so your time is yours as you wish. Please.
Thank you very much. In May, I asked the Council in regards to supporting the voice of Parliament. I'm asking you now, given it has been 3 months since my question, you informed the community you're doing events in relation to the voice that aims to inform us on what this voice means. I ask you, what events were held in this 3-month time period and what numbers attended these events, and how were these events promoted by Council to the wider Geelong community? I now ask you, in the lead up to the referendum, which is a vital time for undecided voters to understand and get the correct information about the meaning behind the voice. I ask you, Council, what plans and events do you now have in September and October to continue the information being provided to community members?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Tegan. I'll now go through the Director of Customer, Community and Economy for response. Bryce Prosser, please.
Thanks, Paul, and thank Tegan for her questions as well. The City is hosting free forums and community kiosks throughout the rest of August and September for community members to come together for conversations about the voice to Parliament. 7 forums will be held at Wariki Nial over the next 6 weeks, as well as 5 more pop-up kiosks at various locations, including Cryo Village, Belmont Library and Ocean Grove Library. The forums are free, but registration is required, which you can do via the City's website. The pop-up kiosks do not require registration, so you can just come along and have that conversation. The conversations will be facilitated by the City's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Senior Policy Officer, Julie Saylor-Briggs, and other City staff. The 4 pop-up kiosks that have been held so far have been focused on providing more informal conversation opportunities for the local community, and therefore we do not have recorded attendance numbers. However, anecdotally, there has been plenty of positive feedback about valuable informative conversations being had, and it is a two-way conversation, to hear views and to also express what's happening in terms of the process. We encourage the community to attend these forums and kiosks, ask questions, put forward their viewpoints, and be open to all of the viewpoints suggested by others that are participating. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, can I just comment, just make some broader strategic comments about this, our relationship with our First Nations people? In the last 6 months, the council actually made a decision that our portfolios should be held by the mayor, the office of the mayor and the office of the deputy mayor, and that has actually happened. That's actually a significant statement that the two most important office holder positions in the City of Greater Geelong are the portfolio holders for our relationship and reconciliation with First Nations people. In relationship to what has just been said by the officer about how we're conducting our dialogue and our walking with the statement of the Uluru from the Heart, we actually are very much guided by our policy officer, Julie Saylor-Briggs, and Julie is a proud First Nations person, and she has actually educated this council group significantly over the last 9 months since she started employment with the city. And I'm really proud that we haven't actually imposed this process in terms of engagement. It actually came from discussions and communications with Julie, with the local First Nations community, and it has been developed with the whole spirit of actually trying to take as many people forward as possible with reconciliation with our First Nations people. And Julie has actually just presented to the Mayor and myself in the last 10 days the amount of interest of how the City of Greater Geelong is actually conducting itself with its First Nations people is actually generating significant interest from other local government authorities to see how we're actually doing it, and it is being done in such a respectful way. And I think it is something that we don't celebrate enough as the council, that we do understand our responsibilities to actually acknowledge 60,000 years of continuous culture in the world that actually exists in Australia, and I'm extremely proud of what this council is doing, and I encourage everybody to make an informed decision about the referendum when it is in either October and November, and certainly that's what this council is attempting to do. We have committed to the Uluru Statement from the Heart, and we did that nearly 2 years ago as a council group. So we do support the initiatives that are listed in that statement, which includes a voice to Parliament and constitutional recognition. So the council has put that on the table in terms of a policy position, and we are strongly committed, both financially and policy-wise, to significantly improve the relations and the gap that exists between non-Indigenous people and Indigenous people that live in Geelong.
Thank you, Mayor Aiken. 3 minutes on the dot. Thank you. Yeah, please, Councillor Hathaway. I need to give us a preemptive time.
Hello. Hi, Paul. Thanks for your question. I guess just to add to what Deputy Mayor Aiken has said, all the councillors get turns to write regular columns for a lot of local media publications. So I guess it's off the direct topic of events specifically, but I know the Deputy Mayor and myself have been using some of those columns as an opportunity to encourage an informed vote, as you said, and certainly we'd encourage other councillors to be using those platforms. It's disappointing that some of the messaging going out there is if you don't know, vote no. We definitely want to be, however people vote, we just want to make sure it's an informed vote. I guess the other thing to add to that, it wasn't a COG organised event, but there was a forum a few weekends ago with Linda Burney, which 3 of us had the privilege to attend, and I was really amazed by the turn-up. There was 250 to 300 in the room, which was really inspiring. And I noticed you're wearing the Vote Yes t-shirt, so I just encourage yourself and any others involved. The email's on the website, but it's councillorinquiry@geelongcity.vic.gov.au. A lot of different people and organisations are organising forums, and councillors might not necessarily be across every event that groups are organising, so really encouraging you to send those events through, and councillors, will try to attend those as well where we can to support those events.
Of course, and then knowing what you guys have got, we'll also start promoting some of that, because it wasn't until tonight that we discovered that, so
Yeah,
thank you.
No worries, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Cheers. Jean Nel de Coca. Why, Jean?
I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
Oh, thank you. Well.
Good evening, councillors, and congratulations, Belinda, on a very comprehensive and an excellent informative report. It's great. It made for great reading. My first question is about the Trees on Private Land report. All indications are that the future holds summers with extreme heat and erratic weather patterns. On the 10th of August 2023, the City of Geelong website, on the city's website, featured statements from Mayor Sullivan and also Councillor Aitken expressing your support for a City of Geelong flood modelling project. And both your comments cited changing weather patterns with the Geelong region witnessing increasingly frequent significant rain events. Our recently published evidence-based studies reiterated the vital role of mature trees in both heat and flood mitigation. Guess what's the cheapest solution that addresses heat as well as floods? Trees. In July 2022, the Council passed a resolution directing the City of Geelong CEO to allocate resources and provide a report on tree protection on private lands by 30 June 2023, a couple of months ago. We're heading into September. However, the report was not tabled for consideration at the July Council meeting, nor is it on tonight's agenda. No updates on public engagement or consultations regarding the regulation of trees on private property have been provided since the resolution's adoption last July. So my question is, would the Council kindly update the residents about the report's status? Specifically, has the report been completed? Can we look forward to public engagement? And if so, why hasn't it been presented at the Council meeting in July or tonight?
Good question, Jean. The most up-to-date information we have as a council is that the report is currently being finalised and is currently scheduled to be considered at the October council meeting.
Look forward to public consultation.
I haven't seen the report yet, so we'll have a look.
Thank you. My second question also relates to the statement on the city's web page. So not a statement published in the newspapers, but it's specifically the city's webpage. And I highlight that because Highton is also part of the city. The website provides details on the Greater Geelong Connected Network Analysis Flood Mitigation Project. It states that the project will assist the council in determining where to allocate funds for drainage improvements and water management solutions. Additionally, it aims to provide current data for building regulations, planning controls, and emergency management modelling. Now, during meetings in 2021 and 2022, city staff informed Highton residents that their concerns about flooding, particularly after major flood events in the area, were noted and would be addressed. The staff informed residents that a future study will consider upgrade opportunities that provide the best outcomes for the community, with a particular focus on more frequent rainfall events, as well as opportunities for stormwater harvesting and improvements to stormwater quality. And that's a quote from an email. Yet it appears that Highton is not included in the flood modelling project because the Geelong website page does not mention Highton at all. And I noticed that the published response indicate that it's because of the small allocation of funding, which is a bit of a concern. So I wanted to know why Highton has been omitted from the project, despite previous assurances made by senior staff. Now, perhaps I'd say I want to know how small is the allocation that it didn't grant a mention on the city's webpage.
I'd say thank you for your question, Jean. I'd say in these difficult financial times, no allocation is small. It's always precious. But I'll go to our Director of City Services, David Greaves, for a response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Jean. I will read the whole answer and then try and answer any further questions. So, scheduling of the catchment studies is indicatively set by our Stormwater Services Strategy 2020 to 2030, and that's available on our website. The media release pertaining to the Greater Geelong Connected Network Analysis and Flood Mitigation Project presents those catchments receiving the greatest apportionment of grant funding, that being Central Geelong and South Geelong, and that was a significant piece of funding that we did receive following recent storm events. At present, the Highton Catchment Study has been allocated some minor grant funding, and I'll have to take it on notice to find out what that is for you. However, these works will predominantly be funded through the city and the city's current operational budget, hence their exclusion from the press release, which was about the funding. Highton Catchment is on schedule to commence this financial year and be delivered by 2025 as committed within the Stormwater Strategy. The city recognises the importance in progressing with the catchment flood studies and the benefit they bring to the community. We've also had this year within the current budget approval for a dedicated person to assist in the delivery of the stormwater catchment studies and hope to commence the recruitment of this position shortly.
Very helpful. Thanks.
Excellent. Is Chrissy Freestone here this evening? I hope that Councillor Contel will just leave the chamber.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for taking my question. My name is Chrissy Freestone, and I'm representing the Northwest Alliance. We're a coalition of organisations and local community members with serious concerns that the environmental values of the northern and western Geelong growth areas and the Geelong strategic assessment are not being given their due importance. Last month, Council endorsed for public consultation the draft Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Plan and Strategic Assessment Report prepared for the Northern and Western Geelong Growth Areas Strategic Assessment under the Commonwealth EPBC Act. I'd like to highlight in the assessment report point 37 of Key Matters, which is on page 71 of last month's council agenda, which says further observations of on-ground conditions since 2019-20 have confirmed that the habitat identified is declining due to land use change and weed infestation. And my first question is, what concrete proactive steps is the council taking right now to prevent the degradation of the environmental values across the areas of the GSA that will or may become protected as either strategic conservation areas, opportunity areas or biolinks? Landholders need incentives to undertake interim management to make sure we don't lose the nature and endangered species such as the earless dragon cog is promising to protect.
Thank you for the question, Chrissy. Go to the Director of Planning and Design, Gav Smith, for response.
Thank you, Chrissy, for the questions. and particularly interested in that assessment process, and certainly look forward to your input through that consultation. So there is a very significant regulatory and financial commitment by the city. If it is to proceed on that process, landowners have been participating in the preparation of the strategic assessment and are aware of the environmental values on their land and the regulatory obligations they have to manage that. There are no incentive programs available at the moment that we're aware of for the management of land within the Northern Western growth areas. And again, if yourself or other members have some of that information, we'd love you to share that with us. The design of the conservation commitments and funding program include the early delivery of some of those conservation lands as a priority to protect that land. Continue on the question.
Second question, Chrissy.
So my second question is, what are the commitments to transparency? The GSA documents contain no commitments to making publicly available all the development and conservation management plans, ecological surveys, offsetting calculations and other matters likely to be required in the implementation of the GSA. The community definitely has a right to know.
Thank you again, Chrissy. Look, the strategic assessment, as you know, is currently on consultation. Input is sought from stakeholders on how we can improve the plan itself. We welcome feedback on practical suggestions such as those improvements to the commitments and the measures. And through that process as well, I think it's an opportunity, if there's additional information you request it. We are committed to transparency. But there's also at times what can be made available because of public privacy and otherwise that we need to do as well. So we do that in amongst the legislation that we have to work within. But again, our staff would be more than welcome to hear some of the feedback as the specifics as well that you think aren't being available that's critical to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. Could I ask someone to get Councillor Contell back to the chamber? Contell return to the chamber at 7:03 p.m. Cecilia Vanderstadt here this evening. Sorry, Celia. Hi, Celia.
Good evening. I guess my question is more of an extension of the number 6 one that came earlier today. So I representing Geelong for Yes, a non-partisan group which was established on June 22nd, 2023, and now consists of well over 200 local community volunteers spread across the city of Greater Geelong. We acknowledge and support the Council's decision in 2021 to support the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Our nation now has the opportunity to implement a recommendation from the statement to recognise traditional owners in the Constitution by establishing a voice to Parliament. Geelong for Yes is actively campaigning to support the upcoming referendum and has already held over 40 community-led actions to engage the local community, such as flyering at street stalls, train stations and hosting kitchen table conversations. We appreciate the work undertaken by Julie Saylor-Briggs on behalf of Council to educate our community about the referendum. And so through our activities, we've been confronted with a persistent lack of awareness of the referendum across the Greater Geelong community, and based on our experiences, we believe the Council needs to do more to assist the community with understanding and ask 2 questions. Firstly, we'll be running information sessions in partnership with the Wathaurong Co-op and Cultura over the 6 weeks leading up to the referendum and request Council assistance in promotion of these events. Will Council support awareness of this information sharing activities through Council channels? Just keeping in mind that question 6 and the important work that Julie's already done has been promoted through the website. Our concern is just the reach. I hate to break it, but people aren't actively going to the council website to look for events, and wondering if there's other channels that can be put into use to help promote those activities more broadly.
Yeah, question, Celia. Really do. We'll go to the Director of Customer Community Economy for response. Vice Prosser.
Thanks for the question, Celia, and also thank you for your work to raise the awareness around the voice referendum in the Greater Geelong community. It's really appreciated. As mentioned, and you mentioned it in your question, the City will continue to promote the upcoming kiosks and forums regarding the Uluru Statement from the Heart over the next month or two. Currently, unfortunately, we are unable to promote non-council events on our social media channels. However, we do encourage Geelong for Yes to register all of their events on the Events Geelong website, which will ensure your event is listed in our public calendar, which will provide an opportunity for greater community awareness of those sessions.
Certainly a calendar I check out, Celia, so it does get some people visiting it. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
I actually don't wish to contradict the officer, but Events Geelong social media actually is a council social media outlet. And in fact, if you do list your event on the Events Geelong website, those Instagram, Facebook and Twitter for Events Geelong actually promotes the event. So the answer you've just been given is technically right and technically wrong. Council's social media, which is the City of Greater Geelong's social media, won't promote it, and it doesn't promote individual events. However, our social media, which is called Events Geelong, actually certainly does. And what I would be encouraging the corporate and communications and media team is to highlight those events when they do get lodged and actually use those channels to communicate it, because in fact our Events Geelong social media platform actually has one of our highest what do you call it, reach and tags or whatever it is, number of friends that they have and all those type of things. So I encourage the corporate communications team to actually have a look if you do lodge those events, and then we do use that platform to promote them. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We'll certainly be looking into that and seeing what isn't possible. Celia, you have a second question?
Yes. The second question was around, will council permit our group to set up information stores on council-owned premises such as leisure centres and council offices, just considering the time crunch leading up to a likely October 14 referendum, and how that's not really aligned with the submission of event permit process?
No, first time I've heard a date, Celia, but we'll definitely take that into consideration. Acting Director Prosser.
Thanks again, Celia. As mentioned, the City is already hosting a number of forums and kiosks at council-owned venues across the region. If your group is considering setting up stalls in council-owned public places, our events team would be more than happy to support you through the event application process. You can visit the events page on the social website for further info, or just provide us with a direct email and we can get in touch. That's fine.
That's one question.
We'll follow up.
Would that be an event permit per stall, or could we, like each time?
Normally each one has to be taken into consideration if it's going to be at locales and whatnot, but we should follow up and our events team will be able to answer the information for you.
I would actually suggest make your events available to Julie Saylor-Briggs. Julie can then actually put them to the events website and assist, and also draw attention to it. Believe me, that's what will happen. And I would actually use Julie as a resource to actually ensure that your events are promoted, that you have, and we can use that non-corporate social platform that does exist. Yeah.
I believe these conversations are underway. Councillor Hathaway.
Mr Mayor, thanks Celia. I guess without repeating everything I said to Paul too, just acknowledging that all the councillors have social media platforms as well. Can't promise what people will and won't promote, but if you can use that councillor inquiry email and just make sure we're in the loop, because I'm sure some of us definitely will promote events as well. And I should have said to Paul, but I just want to acknowledge the work that you guys are doing, because it's down to volunteers on the ground. Thank you.
Cheers. All right. Katerina, Larissa, is Deb Scare?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. I'm Katerina Izdevskaya, and I live next to Frog Hollow, the property at Second Morven Court, set to be developed. The developer obtained in 2020 a report from the ecological consultancy stating that the dam on the property is of poor habitat quality, limited extent, and isolation from other aquatic habitats, making it highly unlikely that it supports any aquatic fauna. And City Council officials accepted that report. Residents, however, know that the dam teems with the frogs, especially during late spring and summer. Frog numbers may be lower since the developers began to move the grass and build a solid fence preventing any migration. But I still hear them at night. I invite councillors and the mayor to visit my garden and enjoy these beautiful songs. The developer stated last month in the presence of council officials that they have no intention to relocating any of the frogs. The council officials made no comment. I have seen developers clearing property of trees even during breeding season and then not developing the property for years. With South Valley Road on the one side and the new solid fence on the other. The frog have no way to escape. My first question is, does the council have any policies that support biodiversity and support the humane treatment of animals?
Thank you for your question there, Katerina Larissa. I'll go to our Director of Planning and Design for response, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Katerina Larissa, for coming along and asking these questions. I note that this application is currently under review and no decision has been made as yet. As part of our process, Council may request additional information if it's considered necessary to make its decision and include decisions on a planning permit if one is issued. As you are aware, I believe, the applicant has previously provided a biodiversity report, which I note you mentioned, which is assessed and accepted by the Council's Environment Department. The applicant has continued to advise they are satisfied the proposal has met all the obligations under the Flora and Fauna Guarantee Act and the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Act based on the expert advice they have received. Just off script a bit, in terms of what you're commenting around the Council's policy, it's very much the state and federal legislation that guides what the city will do in these circumstances. Ongoing discussions and detailed questions regarding resident objections to the development are best directed to the Council Planning Department. They're more than comfortable to take those questions and have those discussions. And they'll be able to liaise with the applicant for further information as well. It's the best forum to actually work through on current planning permit matters.
My second question is, will Council allow the developer to bulldoze the frogs like it allows developers to cut down trees with the nesting birds?
Like my response mentioned, this application is under review and it'll work through that and we'll take the advice of the Environment Department on how we deal with situations on the permit application if it is approved. Yep.
It's not clear for me, sorry. I got this answer online in the council site, but it's not clear for me anyway. Can Council answer to my question? Does the Council have any policies that support the biodiversity and support the humane treatment of animals?
We certainly do support biodiversity in many aspects of our planning regulations, Larissa, Katerina, and we definitely have rules around, not being cruel to animals, and certainly of our local laws and pets and whatnot, and local creatures and wildlife. but I can't see any that supports humane treatment of animals. But we can get back to you on our policies that do relate to these areas.
Anyway, it's not clear.
I know, I appreciate your time. All right, we have gone over our hour allotted, so we can move into council reports. I'm likely to move on, seeing we only have a couple of questions left to go. I will extend the question time for that. So do we have a Carolyn Gallert here today? How are you, Carolyn?
Good evening all, councillors, CEO, Chair and the gallery. My questions are relating to the International Smart City Expo. So the context is the 14th International Smart City Expo is being held in Sydney the 19th to the 11th of October, 11th to the 19th of October 2023. The Smart City Expo brochure describes this event as Smart City Expo brings together leaders from the best smart cities, governments and leading companies to move cities towards a better future, and it is designed for all the people involved in the local, state and federal government decision-making and analysis. Moreover, this event is also beneficial for private sector companies which want to participate in the development of smart cities. Some agenda items from the brochure include Artificial Intelligence Conference, including the city as a living lab for A1 solutions, digital technologies for smarter, more sustainable and circular cities, cyber security risks around smart city development, what governments can do to ensure smart cities are secure by design, data privacy laws and compliance, and the emerging data-driven city. My first question is regarding, I require that the Geelong City Council advise of the number of participants that are attending as representing Geelong City Council as both paid employees and contracted companies.
Thank you for the question, Carolyn. I can say that right now, City has no plans to attend the Expo in October, and we have no representatives attending and no budget allocation to do so.
You've just answered my second question then. There's no budget allocation.
Affirmative.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. All right, Lewis De Cocker. Are you, Lewis?
I am well, and I hope so are you, Mayor. Councillors, good to see you again. I resume where I was at the last meeting. Last month, I asked 3 questions regarding the frogs at Frog Hollow Dam. I don't need to repeat it because some of it was covered just by the earlier question. So essentially in 2020, the developer obtained a report that was referenced. The report said, there's a dam, it's bad, unlikely to be any life. All the residents around know that's not the case. So the residents provided information to the City Council. At that stage, City Council said, we've already endorsed the report, we did not know. So with that, we went into the VCAT matter. That's been 2 years ago. So last month, I asked the following questions, and I'm back asking them again. What steps did the Council take in relation to that information in the past 2 years? Any steps the Council may propose to take, and any steps that can be taken to ensure the humane removal of the frog colonies at that site. Now, given that no one else is going out to the site to inspect and rely on a report that says unlikely to be any life, this is a recording that I thought I'll bring along to bring the frogs to you and the Council. This was made 2 nights ago. So I now repeat the questions that I put in July, because the answers received then was the information provided to the Council by us as the residents was not considered expert evidence. And should there be any grounding grouse frogs, it would be for the developer to take appropriate steps. Yep.
I was going to say, we can't really hear you with the frog sound going on, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Lewis, please, I'm glad
Thank
it's
you.
loud.
All right. The frogs have made
Lewis,
their
I will
point.
actually direct you as well. You've said you've got listed questions here, and you've got multiple questions following that. You do get 2 questions and a submission per person.
Absolutely, and I'm still within my 3 minutes on this question.
You are, absolutely.
And now I'd love to hear the answer to the 3 questions I've put.
That would be, you get 2 questions, but you don't get 1 question and then multiple sub-questions within it, sir.
Then let me just ask one of them. Keep in mind, this was not answered last meeting, so just one question. What steps did the council take to date in relation to the information provided by the residents?
Good question. I'll go to our Director of Planning and Design, Gav Smith.
I appreciate you coming again, Louis, in referring to some of these questions, and I'll change, I guess, some of the order of the response, because I guess the first most valid point is it's still under consideration, as I explained before, as an application, and is still subject to officers considering it, including our Environment Department, whether they seek further information from the applicant or not. So it's a live process, it's not a concluded process, and officers will collaborate and work through how they approach that and how they consider any additional information provided by objectors, the applicant or otherwise, and provide the applicant an opportunity to respond to that. As I encouraged in the previous question as well, the opportunity to have those discussions with the city planning officers who are about to give those very valid reasons and questions you raise and provide responses to applicants, objectors and otherwise. That is the form that's best result, because then you can hear from the technical officers that are actually dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Thank you for that answer. I want to hand to the information provided. This is not a planning matter. When we engage with planning officers, they tell us this is a different department. My question is, what has happened since? So before the new application has been brought, what has been done in relation to this information? And this is my second question. Essentially, at the last meeting, you said that the information provided, which is 2 affidavits by 2 Melbourne-based, University of Melbourne-based frog experts, together with another academic, which is an expert, so 3, that was not expert enough for the council. So perhaps just summarising my questions then, what else do we need to do as residents to provide to the council to balance this with a report that says it's unlikely that there's any life in that dam? That we know is simply not true. And anyone going out at the right time to the property, when frogs are actually active, would probably hear what you've heard tonight.
Gareth, we'll go for answer and clarification, please.
I will refer to as my recollection as well, when it was asked previously, was reference to the previous application in the VCAT process. As I said, we have a live application for the site that is still subject to being considered. So that was my recollection. We were replying, the question previously was regarding the previous application. It's just my recollection. I said so.
I'm sorry, I'm not following that. My question
You referenced
is,
the VCAT
the answer was
process
the
last time.
Council of Geelong, and I can quote it specifically, but essentially did not accept it as expert evidence. The Council of Geelong and VCAT. We're not speaking about VCAT now, we're speaking about the Council of Geelong. On what basis did the Council of Geelong say that what we provided there is not expert evidence?
Are you referring to the current live application?
Are you referring to the current live application, Lewis?
I'm referring to the answer provided, which is probably, and that's not clear because it wasn't an answer to the questions I asked, but it's probably a reference to the previous proceedings in 2020. I don't know. I cannot clarify your answer.
That was our interpretation of the question as your reference. So yes, I believe it was in a response to the previous process.
And then in that previous process, on what basis did the council decide that what we provided was not expert enough. Because my question was, what have you done since 2020 while the grass was being cut, while changes were being made to follow up on the information provided?
As we referred in the previous response as well, the obligations become to the landowner under the various acts, state and federal. It's not for the city to be administering those government acts on every private land regarding the protection of species.
Thank you, Leslie. There's been multiple questions now and there's been multiple answers provided. We thank you for your time.
The frogs will remain.
We understand.
The question is
thank you,
what
Lewis.
you will do.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Vicky Perrottier this evening. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm here, Melanie Keegan. I'm speaking on behalf of Vicky, who could not make it this evening. We cannot fix one environmental problem by creating another environmental problem for future generations. Incineration is the most expensive way to manage waste and the least efficient way to make energy. For every 100 tonnes of waste burned, 25 tonnes of toxic ash is produced. All waste incinerators emit deadly forever chemicals and toxic pollutants that travel long distances and bioaccumulate in the environment. Our region already has poor air quality with above WHO recommended levels of fine particulate matter. Geelong residents are worried about the adverse health impacts for their families and the environment. Has Council formed a position on whether it endorses the Prospect Hill Waste to Energy incinerator as the EPA decision is imminent? If Council hasn't done so yet, when will it?
Thank you for asking the question on behalf of Vicky Melanie. I'll get you to ask a question to it as well. Then we'll flow on.
Thank you. The Lara Big Incinerator is a watershed project that would take Geelong in the wrong direction. It would damage its clever and creative vision, make it more difficult to develop a clean energy circular economy, and impede the target of net zero emissions by 2035. Our region is already leading the way with its green organics processing facility and Barwon Water's Regional Renewable Organics Network project. The city doesn't need this big incinerator, and the community most certainly doesn't want it. Will Council listen to and support the community by writing to the Planning Minister to advise her of their many well-founded concerns?
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Vicky. So as noted at the last council meeting, the council certainly does understand and has heard the community concerns. However, as a referral authority in this process, the city is obliged to provide independent advice and feedback regarding the application's consistency with the planning scheme. As you'll be aware, the planning permit for this application will be determined by the Minister for Planning. We encourage you and any concerned community member to direct your concerns to the EPA and the Department of Transport and Planning to be considered as part of the process. At this current point in time, the Council does not have a current plan or point in time to write to the Minister. Thank you. Pathway.
Sorry, Melanie, just to respond to that. No, you're so fine. I just want to add to that too. Just want to acknowledge yourself, Les, Charles, Vicky, who's not here. For those that weren't at that forum last night, there was 140 to 150 people on a cold night in Lara that came out to that forum. So I just want to say well done to those of you that built it. I have reported back to the councillor group this evening, and hopefully there will be an opportunity to have further discussion. So just encourage you to keep doing the work that you're doing. Yeah.
All right, thank you all. That concludes question time for this evening. Thank you to all submitters of questions this evening, to councillors and officers. No, I'm sorry, apologies, man. We've been over time for question time, so I took ones just that have been pre-submitted, and we can't open up to the floor, I'm afraid, man.
You skipped over one.
We all pre-submitted questions were heard. Thank you, ma'am. That concludes question time. We'll be going on to the next one.
Is it Felicity? Because that was skipped over, I think.
Felicity, that was, didn't I? Apologies, I did not read out number 7. My apologies. Number 7 was Felicity Dales. Please. Don't let me know. G'day, Felicity. Apologies for that.
Representing Felicity Dales, yes. I thought you must have missed it, but I didn't know. Welcome everyone and everyone in attendance, and welcome Council and Mayor Sullivan. Question 1. Following up from my questions submitted last month in relation to the subscription to G21 for 23 years at $500,000 per year, amounting to over $10 million invested. The answer provided was that it is confidential in nature. Why is that confidential? Surely with your annual budget allocations and expenditure, there is an expected result for that. What local government act can you refer to indicating that it is confidential?
Thank you for the question, Felicity. We have the Director of Strategy, Governance and Corporate. Thank you, Dr. Prosser.
Thanks for the question, Felicity. The information is confidential because it was considered in a meeting that was closed to the public under Section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020. This provision enables meetings to be closed to the public to enable the Council to consider confidential information. The information contained in the report was confidential because it contained Council business information that would prejudice the Council's position in commercial negotiations if it was prematurely released. And it also contained legally privileged information to which client legal privilege applied.
Question 2. As the questions asked last month pertained to what you would do differently and how those funds would be directed after 2024, surely these are questions asked after any major expenditure made. This is part of budget reviews and professional business strategy. Can you please explain why you're unable to be transparent about this?
Russ.
Thank you again for the follow-up. In deciding where to allocate future funding, demonstration of clear and identifiable deliverables is required to ensure the return on investment for the municipality can be measured. The savings from the exit of G21 were included in the general FY24 budget process and allocated in accordance with the adopted budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicity. Apologies for missing your question. Diane, sorry. Diane. All right.
Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
Please,
Very
Councillor
quickly.
Contel.
I just acknowledge that there is a gentleman in the chamber by the name of Ian Kelly who came in especially to ask a question. I understand we've run out of time. Just want to acknowledge that we all have a copy of his question on our desk here, which we've received, and also that Ian sent an email through to myself today, and I've shared that with the acting CEO, Director of Finance, our CFO, and also copied in yourself, Mr Mayor, and the Deputy Mayor. So the question has come through, and of course you're more than welcome to send it through to other councillors if you choose to do so, but all the councillors have a copy of your question in front of them. So thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Councillor Contel. We'll have to take the question from Mr Kelly on note and certainly get a response back. All right, now we'll be moving on to petitions and joint letters this evening. Councillors, are there any petitions or joint letters to be tabled? Pause one moment before going into reports. Does everyone need to take a brief recess before going to reports? No, we'll just hold on briefly until Councillor Maloney returns. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move into section 2, which is reports, and the first item on the agenda is dogs in public places. Looking for a mover, Councillor Contell, thank you, seconded by Councillor Murray. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, this report asks us to adopt the completion of the community engagement pertaining to the dog control orders, also to note the resulting feedback from the public exhibit regarding the same, and also to adopt and authorise the making of the City of Greater Geelong dog control order. In terms of this report, I'm not going to go into all of the detail, but I will commence by stating that there's no doubt that this was a well attended report. There's been a significant amount of feedback that has come through during the consultation period. And so, in essence, we as a council adopted the dog control orders back in 2021. It was the Domestic Animal Management Plan at that time. And one of the key items of that plan was to review the dog control orders. So in 2022, we commenced doing a more further review of that. And then in April of this year, we generated some high-level responses and also were accepting feedback for the proposed changes to the dog management plan or the animal management plan. As a result of that feedback, and we received some 1,300 responses and also 1,000 odd contributions, there were suggestions for 15 reserves within the City of Greater Geelong. Of those 15 reserves, after taking into consideration the feedback that we received, the proposal is that 8 are recommended to remain the same as they are today, they being Barwon River Sanctuary, Indented Head Woodland Nature Reserve, Sparrow Vale, Barwon Heads Community Park, Elko Park Equestrian, Grinta Reserve Equestrian Centre, Port Arlington Plony Club Reserve as well. And then there are 6 that are recommending changes, which are within the report. Some of those being that there are areas that are further restricted to what they were before in terms of off-leash or on-leash. Other areas are actually allowing for further use of the park in terms of dog access. There's one park being Yellow Gum Nature Reserve, which the decision has been put on hold until such time as we establish the public access. There's some works occurring to that, and that needs to be finalised before we can actually establish what we'll do in terms of dog visitation and how dogs are managed in that space. I think it's something that the public need to continue to familiarise themselves with, because there are areas where dogs can roam freely as long as they're accompanied by their owners and managed. There are other areas where obviously dogs need to be managed with on-leash, and then there are areas and reserves for various reasons that dogs are not permitted. So it is one of those things that we need to continually be aware of. I know just from personally being a dog owner, walking different areas of Geelong, I'm very mindful of where our dogs are able to be off-lead or on-lead, but it's not always simple. So I do ask the community to try to familiarise themselves. If they're not sure, to certainly contact the council and seek further advice, or have a look at the recommendations on our website as well. So I'll leave it at that for the time being.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Much appreciated. Councillor Murray.
Thank you to Councillor Contell for those words, and I can't really say too much other than agree with what Councillor Contell has said. There's certainly over the years in this chamber, we've certainly talked dogs on a regular occurrence, and it's a very emotive topic, and people have their view with their dogs, whether they should be allowed off-lead or not, in different areas all around the region. And as Councillor Contell has said, it's not simple. There's no perfect system. But I really want to congratulate the officers for this. It's a huge response, 1,382 responses from over 1,000 contributors, huge numbers, which really shows what people think of their dogs, which is great. We know the 15 reserves that was sought feedback, and 8 are recommended to remain as they were, and then there's 7 that have been amended following community consultation. So it's really about now adopting and authorising the making of these new dog control orders and asking the public to abide by them. I think that's the important matter to come out of this. These are new dog orders, and we ask the public to be patient and please abide by these dog orders. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors wish to comment? Back to Councillor Contell to close.
Look, I think what will be pleasing for dog owners is that there are parks within this review that previously dogs were actually prohibited, and now there are areas of those parks, Lake Lawn Reserve, Grinta Reserve, Port Arlington Pony Club Reserve, where there are areas where dogs can actually are allowed, off the leash. So there are real advantages as well for dog owners here. And I must say, just personally, from all the people that I see, walking our paths, whether it be the waterfront, whether it be the Barwon River, or at least the areas that I frequent, whether it be the beaches, but by and large, most owners are very responsible. Hopefully this goes some way to allowing those activities to continue to occur.
And yes, you are correct. When we're walking our dogs, we don't only represent ourselves, but all dog owners. All right, with that, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 2 this evening is the proposed amendment C447 and planning permit 1123 and 2022 Princess and Huntington Streets, Drysdale. Moved Councillor Cadwell and seconded Councillor Harwood. Thank you. Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you. Oh, good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. This report essentially asks Council to endorse the preparation and exhibition of Amendment C447 GGEE and an associated planning permit to develop the majority of land for residential development. The planning permit seeks to create approximately 192 housing lots in a range of sizes in Drysdale, and the site bisects the Ballerine Rail Trail, which is within the Drysdale-Clifton Springs settlement boundary and closely located to the Drysdale bypass. There's broad policy support for urban consolidation in this area, including the settlement strategy and the town's structure plan, which was adopted by Council in 2010. It's been described as a logical rezoning as it will facilitate urban growth on the southeastern edge of Drysdale, and it's located approximately 1.2 kilometres south of the Drysdale town centre, positioned quite close to existing sport, community and educational facilities. And this amendment seeks to rezone the land bounded by Huntington Street and Princess Street and the Drysdale bypass and affects 12 properties. The planning application to subdivide the land at Huntington and Princess Street applies to only 10 of those properties. All affected landowners are aware of the proposal, and the developer applicant has agreements with the 2 largest properties, and they have the support of the balance of the landowners for the rezoning application to include their land. And just finally to say that any interested community members can actually sign up to alerts at the COG website, which is www.geelongaustralia.com.au/amendments, in order to be notified when the amendment C447 GGEE and the planning permit will go up for exhibition. Thank you.
Good. Well, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the recommendation. It's a as status a logical area for development within the existing settlement strategy down there. It adjoins existing residential properties. The broader community have a opportunity to make submissions to the process, to the amendment rather, and they will be notified during the statutory exhibition period, so they'll have their chance to have their say on the matter. And I think importantly, this particular opportunity will take a little bit of the pressure off that area, which has had extensive sprawl in recent years. So while it's a small area by comparison, it still is a step in the right direction about trying to contain sprawl of residential areas in that part of the Bellarine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any councillors wish to speak? I will just comment as the only Bellarine Ward Councillor here this evening that we all know how precious our green breaks on the Bellarine are. And a lot of work and protection has gone into protecting these town boundaries and the green breaks, not only at a council level, by the reinforcement of distinctive areas and landscapes by the state government. Part of the trade-off of protecting the green breaks and our town boundaries is that we do change from outfill, greenfield, to infill, so to speak, of our town boundaries. And this has been a long-standing, as I said, alignment with the strategy of our settlement strategies, of the town boundaries of the Drysdale and Curlewis, Clifton Springs townships. This is logical inclusion, it's within inside and ties in very nicely. Borders the rail trail, and looking at the designs, there will still be reserves alongside of the rail trail to keep on that regional country township feel that comes along with living in beautiful areas such as this. And diversity of land blocks and sizing in there, so it does add to, or helps alleviate property pressures we have in this region, and I'm happy to endorse it. Any the councillors wish to comment? Councillor Cadwell to close, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Nothing further.
Thank you. Put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? The item is passed. Item number 3 on the agenda. Business feasibility, the Geelong Museum of Motoring and Industry, and the Big Thing. Councillor Aiken, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to move an alternative as to be the substantive motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Athway. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. This project, it's actually fantastic that the business feasibility study has finally come back to us. It was in November 2021 that former Councillor Gresbeck and myself actually put forward a notice of motion which was responding to 2 different requests in the community. One was from the Geelong Motoring and Industrial Museum Group, who had lost their home in December 2020. They were housed at Western Heights in Vines Road, and the significant collection of vehicles and memorabilia associated with Australia, with Geelong's manufacturing history and industrial history, no longer had a site location. And Councillor Gresbeck, former Councillor Gresbeck, took up the challenge to actually create a big thing for Geelong. And I'll just talk about the big thing first. The big thing was actually an idea that we should be celebrating our engineering history associated, that Geelong was the world designer for the ute. So the common ute that we now see that is around the world in so many different forms actually came from a Geelong-based engineer at the Ford Australia site location. And the big thing was an opportunity to celebrate that unique history as a city of makers, and it's pleasing to see that this feasibility report endorses that there is an opportunity for us to have a big thing. It talks about the design principles that we should have to deliver that, and it actually talks about the economic and tourism benefits associated with establishing a big thing in Geelong. Importantly, it links it with the Council's UNESCO City of Design concept and membership responsibility, and it actually challenges the Council and the broader community of Geelong to develop a big thing within the framework of that organisation and commitment that we have in Geelong. The second and major part of the feasibility study was actually to look at the viability and whether it was warranted to actually have a museum in Geelong dedicated towards our industrial and motoring history. That is such an important component of our development as a city over the last 100 years. And I'm pleased to say that the feasibility report not only says that it is viable, it says that it is warranted. It also says that there is a definite need for additional short visit tourism opportunities in Geelong. And with the Spirit of Tasmania recently being established in the Geelong region, we need an activity such as this that's brought forward by the museum. What the report did do, it looked at 5 potential site locations and has identified 2 significant site locations. The first being the old Ford site out in Norlane, and the report actually says that the council should support the Motoring Museum organisation to actually seek favourable terms and actually make that the home of the museum going forward. It seems quite logical, a solution, but it certainly wasn't the case 3 or 4 years ago. But now that I certainly do encourage the museum group, and I also encourage the current owners of that site location, which is the Paliga Group, to consider the significant connection and history that we have towards the motoring and industrial manufacturing that has existed in Geelong. The second site location that was recommended was actually Seagull Paddock, and it identified that that site location, there were benefits associated with Seagull Paddock site. It was much easier to co-locate the big thing and the museum. It would also be able to be compatible with other usages that may exist in that site in the future if we wish to explore them, such as a low-cost camping site location and even a miniature railway as well too. So the feasibility study talks about the compatibility that exists between that usage and that particular site location. It also identifies that that site location does have some challenges for us as well too. It is currently public open space. It is also an old tip site which would require investigation in as well too. But the most important thing is that the report tells us that if we don't do something, the collection, and essentially it's the original Ford Australia motoring collection, is under threat. It's under threat not just being lost to Geelong, it's under threat of actually being lost to Australia. The reality is that that collection could possibly be broken up. It's now been housed over at least 3 or 4 site locations in Melbourne and in Geelong. It contains incredible pieces of history, such as the last Ford Falcon ever built, and it also includes the first vehicle that rolled off the Ford Australia assembly line in 1925 when Ford Canada, in fact, made the decision to actually open up operations in Norlane in Geelong. And it will only be in 2 years' time that it will be 100 years since that vehicle actually rolled off the platforms out at Norlane. So I think we have a responsibility as a community to actually support this. We don't have a very good track record about protecting our heritage, and here is a really good opportunity for us to actually work with a dedicated community group that is very professional in the manner in which they wish to undertake this project, and I have absolute confidence that the broader Geelong community will support both the big thing and a museum that actually is dedicated towards our motoring and industrial history.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Well said. Seconded by Councillor Hathaway, please.
Mr Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Very thorough. I guess just to add to that, the reason why I'm seconding and supporting this project is to acknowledge the importance of the motor industry and car manufacturing, both as part of Windermere Ward and our history out in the north, but also the history of Geelong more broadly. I'm losing my voice, sorry. It certainly seems like every other person I speak to out in Windermere Ward had a family member or two who worked at Ford at one point or another. And for this reason, I believe it's important to preserve this history rather than lose it. Further, I guess with the benefits of the Spirit of Tasmania, docking in the north, having other sites in close proximity of interest to tourists and visitors to Geelong will further support and only benefit the northern suburbs and the city more broadly. So I commend the motion.
Southway. The other councillors wish to make a comment? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and I thank Councillor Aitken and Councillor Grisbeck for initially putting this up a number of years ago, and I'm a huge supporter of this. I think it's imperative that we try and protect this collection. There's really good examples of these types of museums around Australia and the world, of course, and they're real places of interest. For instance, in Burnie, Tasmania, there's the Makers Makers and Technology Hub, which pays tribute to the industry and industries of that area in Tasmania, somewhat similar to what's trying to be achieved here. In the same area in Wynyard, just out of Burnie, there's also a motoring museum on a smaller scale. But they are really great places of interest. And when the Ford Discovery Centre was just around the corner from us here, it was actually a fantastic location. I don't know if anyone ever went to their gala nights or whether they went to events that were there, but they used to set up tables and chairs. You could have a meal in there and you'd be surrounded by these magnificent Ford vehicles that were built here in our own hometown over decades. XP Falcons, the XB GT Falcon, just amazing vehicles. And it's just a great historic place to be, and it pays tribute to all those community members that worked in that industry, nonetheless my dad for some 30 years at Ford Motor Company, and so many migrants that came to Geelong in those early days that worked in those heavy industries. So I'm a really big supporter of it. I think the site that's being put forward, particularly the old Ford Motor Company site, is just a real great link, would be a fantastic place to be able to set this up. However, if for one reason or another it doesn't go through, I'm sure we'd be able to find another area that's appropriate. And interesting, today I was looking at social media where people were talking about this initiative. In fact, there was a recommendation that perhaps if this didn't go ahead, maybe Market Square would be an area where you could revitalise Geelong and have all those Ford vehicles and industry in there, which I didn't think was a bad idea either. But having said that, I applaud this. I'll certainly support as a councillor as much as I possibly can, because I think it's a terrific initiative and something that can be built on. It will start with this, but can turn into so many other things going forward. So, great initiative.
Councillor Contell. Councillors wish to comment? I'll go back to Deputy Mayor Aitken to close.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, and thank you for the councillors that have spoken and those that haven't as well too, because we have unique opportunities to actually support projects that the community will love, and this is clearly one of those. I certainly encourage Peligra to be a good corporate citizen. They're a new citizen in Geelong, and here is a unique opportunity for them to actually support the Geelong community on a longer term basis if we can enter into acceptable negotiations for the old Ford site. If we can't, we have got a backup associated with doing work at Seagull Paddock. It won't be as easy, but it is an option that the report says is viable to consider. I also say as well too, we are going to need external funding support for both projects, both either commercial benefactors or even state and federal government benefactors as well too. The big thing won't happen without money from external organisations. And in terms of the museum's viability and capacity to be able to be a longer term venture will very much depend on support that they can get from external organisations. And the best example that we actually have in Victoria is actually in Shepparton, which is the Museum of Vehicle Evolution. If we can duplicate that in Geelong with this proposal, we have got a guaranteed winner. If anybody has actually been up to Shepparton, the Shepparton Council strongly backs the Move Museum there. It is an incredible asset to that community. We've now got a unique opportunity to create an even better and greater asset than what they have with this proposal if we endorse it tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. With that, I put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That item is carried. To thunderous applause. All right. Item number 4 on the agenda, Transport Innovation Study Tour, moved by Councillor Maloney, seconded by Councillor Contell. Councillor Maloney, please.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I asked Council to note the report that I submitted with respect to the Dutch Transport Innovation Study Tour that I attended in July for 1 week, and it was run by the Institute of Sensible Transport, headed up by Dr. Elliot Fishman. Legend. The rationale for attending this study tour was to build upon my extant knowledge for future decision making, especially as we move into more active transport modes and juggle different treatments of the streets in our city. I wanted to find out how Geelong might implement the so-called best practice of the Netherlands implementation and with respect to active transportation in particular. I soon realised that the Dutchies have their cutting edge approach and certainly integrated approach to active transportation, but it also has its challenges and failures too. Just like the Geelong Jeringhap Street roundabout not far from here, Utrecht has it's also similar landscapes and streetscapes that have undergone a facelift. They turned a canal into a busy motorway and then back again after significant constituent backlash and listening to their community. Over the whole week, I met people from far away, from Dubai and New York and as close as Golden Plains Shire, which was a real trip. Also, I met many academics, experts, town planners, people from multiple universities who were giving amazing lectures, but also authors of leading books in the discipline. So I've seen some grown adults really majorly fangirling over technical advisors, which was really fun to see. But they were really speaking their truth about what was good, bad and ugly in their implementations, which I found really refreshing because not many people speak like that. So I travelled by boat, bus, train, obviously plane and car, and also on foot for various implementations of the transport solutions. I visited some commuter confluence hotspots where there were tricky problems in the past, and I also looked at street calming implementations and transport institution headquarters. I witnessed bi-directional bike lanes that worked like clockwork and streets transformed from busy thoroughfares to one-way streets with bikes and flowers alongside them. I also learned a lot of the issues facing cyclists firsthand after I graciously stacked into another commuter who was stopping to take a selfie on Instagram, and I realised that I had a rapidly increasing awareness for signalling and making sure that I was observing what was in front of me. So there were multiple modes of transport in flight, and I think that those options would be a wonderful addition to our Geelong constituents. I've seen not only the streets changed multiple times to meet the demands of residents, including additions of playgrounds and greened areas, but also from the demands of residents and constituents who wished for the children to ride safely to school and elsewhere as well, independently as their mode of transport. So if you've ever been near a school during drop-off or pick-up time, you'd see that the traffic bottlenecks and the car fumes are a really frustrating start and end to the day. So this doesn't occur in the Netherlands because they typically have the children riding all weathers out and about with confidence, and they're also not only increasing their daily activity, getting around on a bike, but also they're out in nature and maybe not getting up to no good because they're busy being independent individuals. And I guess in Geelong we're very different from the rest of the world, and we're certainly a stark contrast from the Netherlands, but our topography is pretty varied and our transport solutions will be as unique as well. I think that the big takeaway is that they were keen to experiment and try things out, and also admit that they messed up, that they didn't do something great. Also, I think the culture is different there because there is an overlay that they'll implement something and have some backlash, but they're keen to do it because they know that there's going to be trust that if it does end up wrong, they'll change it back. So local councils have multiple advocacy groups that provide a voice for the community, and also they accept the failures and learn lessons, and then they write books about them, which I find is really cool. But hopefully you can get something from the report, and I'll leave it to my other councillors to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, first of all, I just want to applaud Councillor Maloney for a couple of things. One, for paying her own way to do this work. So I know it's probably something of interest to you as well, but all the same, you have volunteered your time to a degree to provide this report. So thank you for doing that. Secondly, thank you for the writing of the report. It's certainly comprehensive, as Councillor Murray mentioned earlier on during question time, and do encourage people to read it, and councillors more so than any. I'll be honest, I've read it, but only at a high level, and I want to make sure that I understand it. Whether I agree with everything or not, I don't know, but I love the passion and the content that you've put in there, so thank you. And you've certainly set the bar for other councillors that travel in the future in terms of writing reports. Not that they would potentially be to your standard, but anyway, great work there, Belinda. I love some of the initiatives that are in there. I really like the floral bollards. It sort of reminds me of what a former mayor was trying to do in the city in terms of beautification, but they certainly look a lot better than some of the dreary bollards we see. And I see there's some similarities as well in terms of, the retractable bollards like we've got in Little Mallow Street that they're also using. And then just some of the things that they're doing along railway lines and walking tracks, just to beautify things, but also provide a solution. So, again, I applaud you. Thank you very much for bringing the report to us, and I'm sure that we'll gain benefit from it.
Councillor Contell. Any councillors to comment? Mayor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I actually did read the report, and at first it actually brought back memories from 25 years ago when my wife and I actually stayed in Putten, which is about an hour and a bit north of Amsterdam. And it reminded me because Putten was actually a fairly new community, but it actually only had bikes. And this was in the mid-1990s, and in fact it was refreshing to read the report because it reminded me of that particular experience. We used to actually just ride off every day to the woods, as they called it in Holland, and we actually used to ride to the town square every day to actually collect our bread and other things, and meet other people as well too. And it actually is an experience that I think everybody should get the opportunity to have, because it's completely different to the planned environment that we actually have in Australia. You actually learn we have an American system in terms of how we exist. When you go to places like Putten, for me, and for where Councillor Maloney has been, it really is refreshing and opening. I've privately actually already apologised to Councillor Maloney, but now is actually a public opportunity to do it. I personally voted against Councillor Maloney being endorsed as a councillor to go over on this trip, and questioned the integrity of why you were actually wanting to do that, because I thought you could actually go and do it. What the report, if anybody does take the time to read it, it certainly justifies why Councillor Maloney wanted to actually get the council's endorsement, because the report is of high quality, as Councillor Contell has already mentioned. And what the report will actually do, it will be a document that actually enriches the data and the evidence that's available to us as councillors going forward to make decisions about active transport. So I commend what you saw that I didn't see, and thank you for the work that you've done in this area, and I look forward to future reports from other councillors as well too, including yourself, Councillor Maloney. Thank you.
Mayor Aiken. No other councillors to comment? Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Councillor Maloney on this very comprehensive and great report. It took, I think, me 20 minutes to sit down and really concentrate and read every word of that report. And I think I'll have to go back and read it again because there's quite a lot in it. but it is such good reading, such good reading. And to think, as Councillor Aiken has just alluded to, that there wasn't total support in the chamber for you to take this trip, and you were paying your own way on your own time to do it. So to come back with the quality of report that you have, really well done on that. And as Jan Lal de Coca said earlier, it made for great reading. And when you, especially in Geelong, you say active transport, all sorts of things pop into your mind. But what you wrote about is certainly cutting edge, and it's certainly the bar is set high in that country. And whether Geelong is perhaps mature enough to grasp opportunities as such you've written about, time will tell. So, you know, I hope we can implement some of what you've written about and what you've brought back with you. So, yeah, Geelong, is it possible? Are we up to it? Well, we'll see. So well done again. Thank you.
Councillor Mohi. Councillor Harwood.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just to Councillor Maloney, probably some of us may not have expected a report of this quality, but I certainly did, with your background and knowledge. But for me, quite simply, I guess the test now is what are our officers able to take out of this report and start to discuss and implement? Because that's the bottom line, is what can we actually make of what's actually been presented to the council and the opportunities that it speaks of, and the methods that this particular area have used to actually implement good ideas, safe active transport around their precincts and their communities. That's what you'd like to see here in the short term. So well done. Thank you.
I feel like we should all have a say now. I think I'm slightly jumping on the bandwagon, but I was also going to say that it's very impressive that Councillor Maloney self-funded this trip, knowing that she felt it was particularly an important opportunity for learning and knowledge transfer for the city of Greater Geelong, and particularly note your determination in seeking the endorsement of the Chamber, which I thought showed real leadership and commitment to the city. And you've obviously now delivered on this fantastic and excellent and detailed report, so I applaud you for that.
Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Maloney. I'll admit I haven't fully read it, and I will. I'm looking through it now, and as I say, a picture says 1,000 words. And I got stuck on the image of the Windhoven ring, is it? And it just shows that, you know, there is infrastructure that can serve a purpose and be beautiful as well. So, yeah, I certainly hope there's a lot we can take out. I think I'm the first to bemoan the reliance on car culture in Geelong, but as someone who lives in Coorow, I'm very dependent on a car. So I'd certainly, love to see more in this area where we can have practical, utilitarian things that encourage active transport, but that also look nice as well. So yeah, thank you, and I will read it more thoroughly.
Thank you. So I'll go back to Councillor Maloney to close.
Mayor Sullivan, and thanks for the other comments from councillors. I really appreciate it. I guess when setting out, I didn't really know what to expect either, as we were talking in the chamber, and I had a great time, and I also learnt lots, and I had a much more academic, very heavily referenced report developed, but then I had to scrap that because I thought absolutely no one would read that because it was too technical, and of course I'm not from that discipline, but it made me really think that we really do need to change the way that we think about transport holistically, especially to Councillor Hathaway's comment about being reliant. You have to, in certain areas, in pockets, and you know, the planning committee will be exemplary of this. Some places you just can't get to without a car or 2 feet and a heartbeat. So people in the Netherlands suffer less from obesity and health-related issues because they have high physical activity, because they feel safe to ride their bike, because the area is safe to ride in, well lit, well treated, and there's a whole bunch of flow-on effects there. So I guess the exposure of these different treatments and the attitudes and culture could fit in really nicely with Geelong. But I guess to my point in the report, if we build it, will they come? We don't know for sure. The bike infrastructure that is in and around Geelong isn't great, and that's in part due to, I guess, the culture not having shifted as much as, say, Melbourne, for example. many people travel by car alone in Geelong as well. We don't use carpooling or rideshare mechanisms, which we could do. And we also don't seem to utilise the bus network, which crescendos in Mirrabel Street for a whole myriad of reasons, including safety. So I think that as a council, we can lead the way to figuring out how to become less car reliant, but I guess it's a chicken or egg scenario, and cars are playing less and less of a role in the Netherlands movement because they have so many other options, including canals. So maybe we need some canals. But I guess the strategic overlay and key point that was raised by the Crow directors is that people spend money when they end their destination. So perhaps we could boost our economy by increasing our transportation options. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. With that, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Moving to section 4, the record of informal meetings of councillors. For the record of informal meetings of councillors, can I please have a mover? Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Murray. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Planning delegations, can I please have a mover? Maloney, seconded by Councillor Harwood. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? It's carried. Section 6 is confidential, which has one report being Audit and Risk Committee appointment and tenure update. A move and a seconded to put into confidential. Moved Councillor Harwood, seconded Councillor Contell. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? It's carried. All right, everybody, we're now to consider the remaining agenda items in the confidential section of the meeting. To move into confidential, can I please have a mover? Councillor Murray, seconded by Councillor Harwood. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. I would like to thank both our virtual and in-person members of the gallery this evening for your participation tonight. Thank you for being here. It's great to have the public in the gallery as always. And we thank you for your attendance. Good night, everybody. Take care.